Chapter 2 Boat Rides. I tossed the uniform into my bag, comfortable with being in my day clothes again. I kept my hair in the ponytail as I walked out from the back, clocking out and saying goodbye to Darcy before slipping out of Nando's, right after I collected my paycheck. "Hey, Melanie," a voice called, making me turn and see one of the boys with his hood over his head and Ray-Ban glasses over his eyes again. "You're Louie's friend, right?" "Yeah, so are you," I said, walking over to him hesitantly. He stuck out his hand. "Well, hello, love. I'm Harry. It's nice to meet you again, without you thinking I'm part of a gang." I laughed sheepishly, shaking his hand. Sorry about that." Harry laughed along with me. "It's no problem. So, has Lou invited you to our party yet? I'm sure he'd love if you came." "Party?" I asked, then shook my head. "Sorry, but I'm not really a party girl." "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." "All right, love. Well, I'll be seeing you. My ride just got here." I smiled and waved at him, walking off to the direction of my car. Why was he here 2 nights in a row? Shrugging it off, I unlocked my car and slipped in, turning it on before pulling out onto the street. It was only noon since I had managed to get a morning shift, which meant I still had some time for volunteer work today. I really wasn't the party kind of girl, especially after... Don't think about it. Letting out a deep breath, I pulled into the daycare parking lot and climbed out of my car, my mind zeroing in on the normal goal: to teach the kids something new today. When I got into the building, Karen was the first to tell me that I had a visitor in my room that was playing with the kids. My brow furrowed as I walked down the hallway, slipping into the room. Louis was surrounded by the kids, all forming a circle around him. It looked like he had said something funny, because they burst into a fit of giggles before launching at him, climbing all over his body until I could barely see him. From the doorway, I giggled at the scene, listening to the girls and boys squeal as he arose cautiously, making sure the kids clinging onto him wouldn't get hurt. "I think they like you more than they like me," I said from the doorway, grinning as Louis looked over to me and a large smile slipped onto his lips. Jimmy ran over to me instantly. "Miss Melanie!" "You're here!" Carter, another little boy, announced happily. Louis raised a brow at me for my earlier statement. "I wouldn't be so sure about that, Miss Melanie." I laughed, then looked down at Jimmy. "So, Jimmy, Miss Karen told me to tell you that she has a surprise for you down in her room. Do you want me to come with you to see what it is, or do you think you can read these directions and find your way there?" Just as I suspected, he grabbed the directions. "I can do it all on my own, I promise. I'll be back soon, okay, Miss Melanie?" "All right, bud," I said. He zoomed past me, eyes zeroed in on the paper. I had made the directions simple, but had a few challenging words with D and B in them, hoping that he could figure out the difference despite his dyslexia. Jimmy was like a little brother to me, and certainly didn't mind acting like I was his older sister. He would most likely be the best little brother anyone could ask for. He cooperated and challenged himself every day. "Miss Melanie, will you sing us a song?" a little boy named Blake asked, his eyes casting to my guitar longingly. "You haven't sung for us all week." Before I could decline the offer, all of the little kids were cheering along, already creating the circle in the center of the room, on top of the carpet. I glanced at Louis to see his big, sparkling blue eyes, holding excitement and curiosity. He didn't know I could sing or play guitar. Slowly, he grabbed my acoustic guitar and held it out to me with a smile. "Come on, Mel. You have fans, Louis said encouragingly, a big grin on his lips. I sighed, taking the guitar. Okay, fine. Jimmy burst back into the room. Miss Melanie, Miss Karen said you were going to sing us a song. I laughed, nodding, and watched him skitter over to the circle, squeezing in. Walking over to the kids, I sat in an open space in the circle, Louis sitting beside me cross-legged as I put the guitar on my lap. All of their little faces watched me, eyes sparkling like Louis's, to hear their teacher get to the part of the class time dedicated to music. Mr. Louis, why don't you sing with Miss Melanie? Blake questioned, cocking his head to the side questioningly. I bet you're good. Louis chuckled. If it's okay with her, then I will. I nodded, raising a brow with a slight smile. Okay then, how about you sing ABC by Jackson 5, so it's at least relating to school. Ready when you are, love, Louis said with a wink. Louis and I continued to switch verses until we were done, and all the kids were cheering and clapping, excited that they got their music of the day from me. After that, I sent them to the tables to color in their coloring books and got off the floor, putting my guitar away in its case before turning to a grinning Louis. I raised my brow, asking, What are you doing here? He shrugged, still grinning cheekily. I just wanted to visit my favorite teacher. Is that suddenly a crime? I guess not, but I'm not really a teacher, I said with a smile. So, you're a good singer. Louis smiled secretively. I've been told that a few times before. You, though, are quite the talented lady, Miss Melanie. You're very good with the guitar. I teased. Okay, call me Miss Melanie one more time, and I'll give you a detention. Louis gasped, in mock surprise, whispering, Miss Melanie, are you trying to get some alone time with me? Because you should just ask me out to dinner instead. Did he just ask me out to dinner? Where do guys get the confidence to do that? Rolling my eyes, I laughed, watching Louis grin that pearly white grin that never seemed to wear off his face. Really, this boy was so attractive when he smiled. Maybe that's why he does it all the time. I still couldn't help but feel the slightest butterflies at the fact Louis had tracked down this place and came to visit me, putting up with a bunch of little energetic kids just to see me. Sorry, but I don't ask out guys that stalk me, I said nonchalantly, looking at the back of my nails like I didn't care. Stalk? Ouch, I'm wounded, Louis replied sarcastically. I glanced up at him. What, you just came for the kids, then found out you had to put up with me? He grinned, winking at me. Exactly, babe. How charming, I commented with a giggle. So, when do you get out of here? At 2. After glancing at his watch, Louis grinned. In 5 minutes. What do you think about going for a boat ride with the lads? A boat ride? Yeah, that sounds so awesome. Louis chuckled. So you like boat rides? My uncle and aunt used to bring me on their boat when I was little, I explained sheepishly. Once they died, they put in their will to give me the boat. I know it's a little cliche, but it's the best way to clear my head when I need it. He nodded, giving me a soft smile. I'll remember that in case you go missing. I laughed. Yeah, whatever. So, how about you meet me at my house and I'll grab a bathing suit before we leave? Sounds great, Louis agreed. Chapter 3, Making Deals. And it starts off with Louis' point of view. I flashed her my perfect smile as she returned one equally as beautiful, slipping into her apartment and shutting the door lightly. As soon as she was out of my line of vision, my smile dropped, and my mind started to wander as I backtracked out of her apartment building. It was obvious that her smiles had secrets hidden behind them. But what were they? I shook it off, reminding myself that this was just a bet. Who cares what was behind her smile? This was just a bet between the lads and I to see if I could shake her. Of course I'd be able to get her in bed in due time. All it took was a little nice guy act before she trusted me, considering she didn't look like the normal sluts that wanted to get in bed with me. Melanie was different. She was a challenge. When I got back to the house, I collapsed on the couch and turned the TV on, watching football as Harry slipped into the room, glancing at me without a shirt or trousers on. "Hey, lad. Do you always have to be naked?" I questioned incredulously, raising my brow. Harry shrugged. "So, did you shake her?" I rolled my eyes. She isn't just going to invite me in. Obviously, this girl is about to take some work. It's going to be a challenge, remember? "It's surprising you took the bet," Harry said with a slight smirk. "Remember, 100 euros if you can't make her get in bed with you soon enough." "Soon enough isn't a time frame," I commented. "Fine, 2 months. Deal," I said, shaking my friend's hand with my own smirk. "It's on." Melanie's point of view. "Come on, Jimmy," I said, pulling on the little boy's small hand. "Your dad said that I'm babysitting you at my apartment tonight, remember?" He nodded, eyes growing excited. "Oh yeah, I almost forgot, Miss Melanie." I laughed. "Well, come on, or else we'll miss your favorite TV show." Jimmy immediately picked up his pace, walking through the daycare as I said goodbye to a few workers slipping outside. It was only 5 o'clock. I had managed to get good hours at the daycare, even though I was barely there yesterday, due to my little boat ride with Louis and the other boys. After I got him buckled in the back seat of my car, I slid into the driver's and started off for my apartment, making conversation with the little kid. Really, making conversation wasn't the right word. He would just talk and talk and talk, providing me with an amused car ride. By the time we got home, Jimmy had already told me 3 stories that had absolutely no point or plot, but seemed happy enough telling them. When we got into my apartment, Jimmy, because I've babysat him before and he knows where to go, took off straight to the kitchen. I laughed, following him in to see him with a mouthful of cookies and hands stuck in the cookie jar. "Jimmy, you couldn't wait until dinner?" He shrugged, blonde hair hanging in his face, as his British accent made the words sound innocent. "I'll eat dinner too." "Whatever, kid. Pizza sound alright?" I asked, rummaging through my drawers. "Yep." Finally, my fingers grasped the pizza number that I had on a post-it note, and I grabbed my phone. Jimmy teetered away and into the family room as the sounds of the TV floated into the kitchen a moment later. Grinning at him, I took the number and called to order a pizza before sticking the post-it note back into the drawer. A few minutes later, as I was sitting on the couch with Jimmy, a knock came from the door. Jimmy looked at me wide-eyed, saying, "That was quick." I laughed, nodding and hopping up. "It sure was." Once I got up, I walked over to the door with bills hanging out of my pocket, ready to whip them out and pay the pizza man. When I did yank open the door, though, it wasn't the pizza man on the other side. It was a certain brunette British boy that can't seem to get enough of me. Momentarily, my heart clenched in my chest, and I wondered if he was actually stalking me or not. Maybe I gave him the wrong idea, or maybe he's just like the other guys that have been in my life. "Hello, love," Louis said, leaning against the doorway with a perfect smile directed at me before glancing at the bills in my hand. "Are you hoping I'm prostituting?" "Shush! Jimmy's inside," I said, but still laughed along with him. "And I'm waiting on pizza." "Pizza, huh? Can I join?" I heard Jimmy shout, "Is that Louis?" Louis poked his head in the door, glancing at Jimmy with a broad smile. I opened the door fully and let him inside, shutting the door behind him and following him over to the couch. Jimmy grinned at his friend that he had just met yesterday, as if they'd have been best friends for life. Immediately, Louis plopped down beside the kid, and Jimmy was all over him, climbing on him like a jungle gym. Louis sent me a fleeting glance, practically crying. "Aren't you going to help?" I shrugged. "No, thanks." Jimmy froze, looking up at me with those big blue eyes, and asked, "Miss Melanie, is Louis the pizza man?" A knock sounded from the door again, telling me this was the actual pizza man. Louis chuckled and ruffled Jimmy's hair as I laughed amusedly again, finding myself always laughing with Louis. He got up from the couch and went over to the door, opening it and paying for the pizza man before I could object it. When he came back, he set the pizza in front of the TV on the coffee table and grinned at me. "I could have paid," I mumbled. He chuckled, sending me a wink. "Then you owe me." I rolled my eyes. "I owe you nothing." "That's what you think, babe," Louis said cockily, a flirting sparkle in his eyes as he watched me try to retaliate. Instead, I ignored him. "Louis isn't the pizza man," Jimmy said suddenly, catching both Louis' and my attention as his brow creased. "But I think I've seen him before." "You saw him yesterday in class, remember?" I said, taking a bite of pizza. Jimmy shook his head fiercely. "No, before that." I glanced up at Louis for any understanding in his eyes, but instead he looked panicked for a split second. Where had Jimmy seen him? Maybe he saw him on the streets of London before, considering I'm pretty sure Louis has lived here for a while. Shrugging, the British boy sitting next to me with messy brown hair and a striped shirt shook his head at Jimmy. "Sorry, mate, but I don't think so," Louis said, taking a bite of his pizza as Jimmy's brow straightened out. "I would have remembered a kid as cute as you." Jimmy scrunched up his nose. He was just caught cute and kid in the same sentence. I tried my best to stifle my laughter as Jimmy tilted his nose upward, saying in a posh accent, "I'm not cute, and I'm not a kid." Louis nodded with a straight face. "My apologies, sir." Jimmy collapsed in laughter, but I could also hear the muffled sounds of screams. Hesitantly, I stood up and glanced at my window, brow knitted together at the sound coming from outside of my apartment. I walked over to the window, but felt Louis quickly pull my hand and bring me back towards the couch, flashing me an easy smile that seemed reassuring. "It's probably nothing, love," he said, trying to convince me of this. Again with the secrets. "Yeah, okay." A few hours later, I closed the door after Jimmy, turning around to see Louis smirk from the couch and send me an arrogant wink. "Looks like we're finally alone, babe." The cautious voice in the back of my head told me to be careful, that I didn't know Louis well enough to be comfortable around him. I know what guys do when you think you're comfortable enough around them, when they think you'll never leave them. I shut my eyes for a second and let the thought pass, deciding that Louis seemed different. Jimmy liked him, and I trusted Jimmy's intuition, as silly as it may sound. I opened my eyes and focused on the answers I wanted to get out of Louis, letting my own fears slip away again. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, what was that about? Louis tensed slightly. What do you mean? First, I said, ticking off a finger, Jimmy said he recognized you from somewhere. Second, I ticked another finger. There was screaming girls outside of my apartment. Didn't you say you were hiding from girls just the other night at Nando's? His eyes flashed, but just as quick as it was there, it had vanished. That was probably just a coincidence, love. Stop calling me love and babe. You remind me of... I stopped short in my snap, mouth clamping shut and eyes widening slightly, that I had almost said his name. A shiver crawled down my back as I bit my lip, Louis's eyes and expression growing curious the second I had cut off my sentence. Slowly, Louis asked, Remind you of... I shook my head, mumbling. If you get your secrets, then I get mine. With that, I met his gaze hesitantly. You should go. He frowned, but didn't protest as he stood up and walked to the door. I didn't mean to make... It's nothing, I said quickly. I'll see you later. As Louis slipped out of my apartment, tears gathered in my eyes from the memory I've been trying to block out. Before the memory flashed through my head, I blocked it out one last time, composing myself and walking over to the empty pizza box and beginning to clean up. I wouldn't let Louis find out about my past when it was so horrifically dreadful in my eyes. I didn't want to even get close enough to him to consider telling him. My past will stay my past. Chapter 4. Bad Memories. Parties. Really, ever since one night about a year ago, parties haven't been my scene. I don't like the stuffy feeling of being pressed against a sweaty body, the smell of alcohol radiating off of people, or the extra loud music beating so deeply that the walls shake. Unfortunately, as I stood in Nando's for my shift, it resembled all of these things, making me believe that's what the restaurant was having. A party. What's going on, Darcy? There's so many people here. I barely squeaked, squeezing through the people and into the kitchen area. Darcy, my friend, looked at me warily. Dinner rush. I cursed under my breath, but I made sure to get this shift just after 7 so the people here for dinner would be leaving soon. Darcy gave me a half shrug, like saying, What are you gonna do? While I tied my hair into a ponytail. Awesome. I got the dinner rush shift. People were squished in booths, in the aisle waiting for seats, and in the front near the hostess desk, waiting for seats. Just perfect. As I went to take the orders of people from my section, I noticed a familiar face here. 2, actually. I sighed, noticing Harry and Louis were in my section once again. I wasn't quite sure if Louis was mad at me or not, after I had kicked him out of my apartment and shut him out of my past. But I will admit, it wasn't unusual for me to do that. My past, including everything from last year and a half, was something I didn't want to revisit, and Louis wasn't going to make me do so. When I got to their table, both boys looked up and grinned, so I instantly knew Louis wasn't mad at me. Hey, what do you guys want for drinks? Harry answered politely. Hey, Melanie, could I have an iced tea? Louis chirped. And I'll have any soft drink. I nodded, turning on my heel to go when I felt a hand grab my wrist. Turning around, I looked expectantly at a sheepish Louis who pulled his hand back slowly. What's up? I was wondering if you wanted to come over later to hang out with the lads. Louis replied smoothly. My shift doesn't end until 10. Then we can watch a film. I couldn't help but smile, nodding. Yeah, sounds good. He flashed me his perfect smile as Harry smirked over at him. Turning around, I went to go grab the food orders for my other tables and dropped them off before gathering the drinks carefully, maneuvering through the sea of people waiting to get a seat so I could deliver them to Harry and Louis. After taking their order, I went back to my job, frantically taking orders and listening to the annoying complaints of unsatisfied customers. Even if there was only a few of those, they still got on my nerves. I'd collect receipts and hand them to the table or give them their credit card back after charging the meal onto it. I already knew how it worked. The guy pays, then the woman tips me, and they leave with either a smile or an annoyed scowl. Why? I don't know, and I don't ask. Once the restaurant began to thin out, around a half an hour later, I was cleaning up Harry and Louis' plates and taking their dessert orders. As I turned to walk away from the table, Darcy rushed over to me, fear on her features. Melanie! Melanie! He's here! My blood turned cold as I asked above a whisper, You mean... She nodded once. Grady. My eyes darted around the room fearfully, looking for the dark-haired guy that gave me this effect. When I finally saw him, he was from behind. His frame was still muscular and as big as ever. His hair slightly grown out so he could run his hands through it, and clad in a black jacket. My breath caught in my throat as soon as I saw Grady. I felt someone's hand on my shoulder and jumped, whipping around to see Louis there. His eyes were slightly narrowed, but also held concern as he asked me, Mel, what's going on? I slapped on a very forced and very fake smile. No, nothing. I just have to go. Before he could object, I hurried back to the kitchen and placed the dessert order before peering around my section. Luckily, everyone seemed to be done their meals and would be leaving soon, since they all had come around the same time. Biting my lip, I took a glance at Louis and Harry to see them in deep conversation, both confused, and Louis was even slightly annoyed. Somehow, I made the mistake of shutting my eyes and instantly remembered the first night Grady did something to me. It flashed before my eyes, making me both cringe and wince as it flooded into my memory in just a millisecond, barely giving me enough time to open my eyes once again as it revealed itself behind my closed eyelids. So now a flashback memory begins. I heard the door open downstairs and quickly got out of bed. It wasn't like I could sleep anyway, and hurried downstairs. Who'd be coming in at midnight? When I got down the stairs, I saw Grady fumbling with closing the door, hand repeatedly slipping on the knob before he just leaned against it and it closed. Grady? I asked softly from behind him, brow furrowed in confusion. My boyfriend whipped around and smirked at me, tossing an empty flask to the floor as he took a few wobbly steps closer. Hey, baby. He leaned on me for support when he almost slipped, and I asked, What are you doing here? You're drunk. What? I can't visit my girlfriend? Grady questioned with a sick smirk. It's midnight, I pointed out. You can't just... Before I could blink, I was pushed against the wall, Grady pinning my legs down and my arms above my head with just one hand. His other hand was on the left side of my head, eyes angry and face now set in a stone-hard scowl. Don't tell me what I can and can't do, Grady growled viciously, grip tightening on my wrist dangerously. Slut. I cowered beneath his touch, whimpering slightly. Seeing the dominance he immediately had over me made him smirk, but the grip didn't loosen. It left a hand-shaped bruise from my boyfriend even when I begged him to let go or to stop. "Please, baby, please just let go," I had whimpered, eyes scared of the monster in front of me. He slapped me across the face, which in return made me gasp before his hand gripped my chin, forcing me to look at him. "Make another noise, and you're in trouble, bitch." I nodded, silent tears gathering in my eyes. End of flashback. I shivered. "Melanie, orders up." Taking a deep breath, I grabbed the tray and tried to calm my shaking hands, walking over to Harry and Louis with a fake smile. My eyes were still looking around uneasily to catch sight of Grady, but I came up short. Had he gone home? When I gave Louis his slice of cheesecake and Harry his molten lava cake, I'm pretty sure my hands shook. They must have, considering Louis glanced up at me, confused and concerned. I flashed him a smile that could have fooled anyone. It was a big grin, and I'm pretty sure it was only a smidge forced, considering I hadn't seen Grady and was a little calmed down. "Enjoy," I told the boys, shuffling over to my next table and handing the people back their receipts. I continued to work for a few more hours after Harry and Louis left. They decided to give me, not like I was complaining, a nice big tip and a nice big hug from each of them, kissing me on the cheek. I had smiled when Louis was fulfilling this part of the evening. He murmured, "Be safe," in my ear before leaving. So I followed his instructions and made Darcy do a sweep of the premises to make sure Grady wasn't here, since she knew him. Basically, she only knew him because I told her basics. He was my boyfriend, and I didn't like him because he had cheated on me. But there was so much more waiting to be discovered about our relationship. The part about him cheating on me was normal. It wasn't the scandal in our relationship. When I was finally done with my shift, it was around 10 p.m. and I was worn out. The thing that managed to keep me going through my shift, though, was the idea of curling up on the couch and watching a movie with the guys, considering they seemed pretty nice. Other than the one night of them all being here, with faces covered in glasses and bodies covered in sweatshirts, I hadn't been with all 5 boys at once. Somehow, the edgy feeling was gone. I no longer thought of those boys as a part of a gang or a threat, which was good because I always managed to see Louis. How did we not see each other until a week or so ago? It puzzled me, really. Now we always see one another, but when we do, it's often also in the presence of a frenzy. My mind wandered to the screaming girls and weird disguises instantly. Shaking it off, I got in my car and followed the instructions Louis gave me before arriving at his and Harry's house. It was nice, pretty big, and after I parked my crappy Mini Cooper in front of it, I wondered how they managed to share such a big house. What do they do for a living? Steal money from banks? Not bothering to knock, I slipped inside, shutting the door and calling out for Louis. "Hello?" I called, walking towards the kitchen after hearing voices in that direction. "In here, love," I heard Louis call. I also caught him saying something quieter to the people in the family room with him, but didn't quite catch what he was saying. Somehow, I managed to hear game and deal, but just assumed they had been playing truth or dare or something of that sort. When I walked into the family room, I saw 2 long couches and 1 armchair, all occupied by 5 boys. Louis sprang up and grinned at me, taking my hand and leading me over to where he was sitting on the couch. My brow furrowed as I glanced around the room, seeing them all smile and wave as a hello to me, but wondering why the hell they looked so familiar. Once I sat down beside Louis, he wrapped an arm around my shoulder. "Mel, these are my mates. If you don't remember their names, that's Niall, That's Liam, that's Zane, and obviously the curly-headed lad is Harry, Louis introduced a second time. I smiled at him teasingly. I remember their names, Lou. He held up his hands in defense. Just making sure, love. You know, I said, glancing around the room a second time as I bit my lip and thought about where I've seen them all before. You guys look really familiar. They shared a knowing look. I can't say we've seen you other than our dinner at Nando's, Niall told me. I frowned. Are you sure you never came by before? For the past years or so, we've been... Zane stopped short, his mouth forming as if he'd say something that starts with T. We've been quite busy. Traveling? Tutoring? I racked my brain for possible answers to this unsolved mystery on the inside, while I smiled, taking in the lie on the outside. Their names and faces were just too familiar. Why couldn't I remember already? I didn't have much time to let myself study these boys. However, Liam, Zane, Niall, and Harry left the room with a wave. Liam, Zane, and Niall left to go to their own homes, while Harry went upstairs to his bedroom, leaving me alone with Louis. Despite the fact I was skeptical about these boys, I pushed the suspicion to the back of my mind and proceeded to watch the movie with my British friend. Chapter 5. Revealed Identities. Just shut up, a voice whispered harshly. Teasingly, another voice whispered, What? Do you care for her already, Lou? Letting your feelings get in the way of the... Louis didn't whisper. Of course not. I groaned, cuddling closer to the source of warmth. I really didn't want to get up. What time was it, anyway? It was only then that I realized this was Louis and Harry carrying out a conversation, reminding me that I had fallen asleep at their house. Sheepishly, my eyes fluttered open, and I looked up at Louis and then to Harry, seeing amusement clear on his features. Before I could say anything, I let out a yawn, trying to straighten up in Louis's arms, which required me to get out of them, and ran a hand through my long brown hair. I heard Louis chuckle beside me as I clamped my mouth shut, slightly embarrassed. Harry fell down on the couch beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders teasingly. What? You couldn't resist sleeping over so you could see how sexy I look in the morning? Harry questioned, a smirk playing on his lips. I realized then that he was only in his boxers and a t-shirt. Oops, you caught me. Now go put some clothes on. His smirk widened. This is my flat, love. You can't tell me what to do. Louis interjected. No, I agree. Put some clothes on before you scar the pretty lady for life. I laughed as Harry dramatically sighed, flipping his curls and getting up to trudge out of the room. Running another hand through my hair to ensure it wasn't too crazy and bedheaded-like, I turned to Louis to see him chuckling. Winking at me, Louis said, Want some breakfast? Sure, I agreed easily. Come on then, off to the kitchen. Aye aye. Louis chuckled again as we shuffled into the kitchen. I hauled myself onto his kitchen island and dangled my legs off the side, my hands resting comfortably on the edge of the granite. I watched as my British friend rummaged through the refrigerator for something decent to eat, pleased when he came out with a carton of eggs. I felt my phone buzz and ring before returning, puzzled. Louis turned to look at me as I looked down, seeing my phone stuffed in the center of my bra, buzzing and ringing to tell me someone was calling me. Sheepishly, I pulled it out, watching Louis both smirk in amusement and chuckle to himself before turning to tend to our breakfast. Answering the call, I put the phone up to my ear and answered it. Hello? I chirped, somehow not being grumpy like I usually am in the morning. Where are you? Darcy asked frantically on the other line. My brow furrowed. What do you mean? My shift doesn't start until... My eyes drifted to the clock on the microwave before widening as I hopped off the counter. Shit, I'll be there in a few. Ending the call, Louis said, What's the rush? Work. Running a hand through my hair again, I snatched my car keys and said to Louis, I'm going to have to skip breakfast. See you later, Louis. I raced out of the house and to my car, fumbling with the lock before getting inside and sticking my key in the ignition. Basically, I sped my way to Nando's to get there in time for my afternoon shift. How had I lost track of time? Why did I even let myself fall asleep at Louis' in the first place? Ugh, I was getting way too close and comfortable with him and the boys way too fast. When I made it to Nando's, I was 5 minutes late. Luckily, Darcy had managed to cover for me, so I just tied my hair up in a ponytail and whipped out an apron before going to tend my tables. Halfway through my shift, I saw Niall and Zane at a table in my section. I walked over and got their drink orders before walking back to the kitchen, bumping into a wide-eyed and excited Darcy. Whoa, what's got you so excited? I questioned, brow raised. Darcy squealed. 2 members from One Direction are in your section. I turned around and scanned my section, only seeing old people other than Niall and Zane. What? Where? Who? I've heard of the band before. Who hasn't? But I can't say I'm an obsessive fangirl. Honestly, I'm always busy between my shifts at Nando's and volunteering at the daycare center, so I never have spare time to go to a concert and waste my money on CDs from iTunes. I can't believe they're in here, Darcy said, breathing in and out way too deeply. Oh my God! I rolled my eyes as I filled up the drink orders for my 2 friends waiting in their booth. Pushing past Darcy, I jokingly reprimanded her and told her to go back to work, while I went to serve Niall and Zane. They beamed at me, and Niall shut his menu. I'll have the chicken, Niall said with a nod. And could I have some pasta as well? Oh, and if you could add bread with butter on the side. I smirked to myself, nodding. Yeah, no problem. Zane? He hesitated. I feel weird making you take my order. I laughed. It's my job. Come on, what do you want to eat? If you don't tell me, then I'll just get 2 of what Niall ordered. Could I just have the pasta? Zane questioned a bit hurriedly. Again, I laughed and scribbled it down before going to place the order for the 2 boys. After taking care of my tables, I cleaned out Zane and Niall's plates. Luckily, Zane was able to talk Niall out of dessert, especially since it was only 2 in the afternoon, and the boys decided to pay. As I was walking over to the register, though, Darcy stopped me. Her eyes were wide and her hands were on my shoulders to keep me where I was abruptly. For a split second, my blood turned cold and I wondered feverishly where Grady was in the restaurant. Was he right behind me, in my section? Fear set in the pit of my stomach as I looked at Darcy, but I was hit with a wave of relief as soon as I noticed she didn't look scared for me. You know the members of One Direction? Darcy hissed, eyes searching my face to give her the answer she wanted to hear. My brow furrowed. What the hell are you talking about? She pointed to a table. You were talking to them all friendly like. I followed her finger to see where it was pointing, at Niall and Zane's table. Suddenly, my mouth turned dry as things slowly pieced together, like the missing piece of the puzzle. The screaming girls, they were fans. The disguises, they didn't want to start a riot in the middle of London. The T word, they were touring. I can't believe it. I said in a whispered tone, my own eyes widening as I stared at the two boys while they tried to balance spoons on their cheeks. Me neither, Darcy squealed. I've been hanging out with One Direction. Darcy had a miniature freakout as the cashier handed me back the credit card the boys were using along with the receipt. I smiled at her and stalked over to the boys' table, my smile slowly slipping with every step closer to their table I took. When I finally reached it, I ducked my head down and mumbled a "here" to them, giving them what I had in my hands. What, are you trying to ignore us? Niall questioned jokingly, making me glance at him. He held out bills to me. Here's a few pounds as a tip, lass. I nodded. Thanks. Zane frowned at me this time. You're acting like you don't know us. I bit my tongue from saying, everyone knows you, apparently. Backtracking from the table, I turned around and walked into the back, thankful my shift was over. Now it's time to go to the daycare. In my work locker, I was lucky enough to have a pair of shorts and an off-the-shoulder gray top to change into before I walked through Nando's. I walked through hurriedly, still slightly shaken from seeing Grady there. What the hell was he doing there? I had to move. I shook my head to clear my head of all thoughts Grady related, getting in the car and driving to the daycare center. Luckily, I got there in a short 5 minutes on the count of no traffic and was able to get inside and greet the class. Unfortunately, I had a visitor already playing with the kids. Oh, hey, Miss Melanie. Karen told me I could cover for your shift. I ignored Louis' wink and said, funny. I thought so, he said, brow furrowing as he walked over to me. What's wrong? I ignored him altogether, working quickly around the room and helping the kids if they got stuck on a word they were trying to read from a book. Margaret came into the room a few minutes later while I was in the midst of ignoring the famous British boy and told me I had to go get the mail. Once again, I ignored Louis like I had been the past few minutes. Smiling at the kids, I walked through the daycare room and pushed past Louis Tomlinson of One Direction. Ugh, it still annoys me that he never told me. Before walking to the front of the building. As I walked outside, Louis grabbed my hand and spun me around. And that's when the flashes came. People were flashing pictures at us, screaming questions about our relationship, and begging for Louis to elaborate. Louis grabbed my arm and brought me into the daycare, shutting the door and drawing the curtain hurriedly before turning to me, slightly panicking. I can explain. I crossed my arms. Go ahead. Harry and I won Nando's Customer of the Week and... Huffing, I threw my arms in the air and glared at him accusingly. No, you're in One Direction, and you didn't tell me. You lied about who you were. You jerk. Louis looked somewhat amused. Isn't it normal for people to want to be around famous people? Not if they're liars, I muttered. He studied me for a moment before asking, how did you find out? My friend is a fan. And you aren't? I don't feel like talking to you right now, I said wearily, slipping my hand out of his grasp and walking to the door again. Don't follow me if you want to be safe. As I slipped out of the daycare, I was once again bombarded with flashes and questions. I just put my hand over my eyes to block my forehead as I pushed through the paparazzi, ignoring them as they tried to put their noses in my business. Louis Tomlinson, from One Direction. Who knew?